have days 1 and 2 of the Confessions of a Paper Addict's 20 Days of Christmas Cutfiles. I'm doing all Christmas Cutfiles, but for those of you in the Southern Hemisphere that celebrate Christmas in the summer, or for those of you that don't celebrate Christmas at all, we're also doing 20 days of summer Cutfiles. So there are prompts for all 20 days. I left those at the beginning of the video for you so you can see the Christmas ones and the summer ones. That's just a great idea on Virginia's part because not everyone celebrates Christmas. So some people will be doing all Christmas, some people will be doing all summer, and some people will be doing a combination of the two. So lots and lots of fun, lots of inspiration, definitely lots of great ways to use these Cutfiles. I'm going to be using them to work on the base pages for my December Daily album for this year. So my plan is to go ahead and get all my base pages done, and then starting on the 26th, I'll print out the pictures from the first 25 days of Christmas. I usually only do the first 25 days in my December Daily, and then I'll take kind of the rest of the month to put the album together and finish it off. So what else do I need to tell you? Virginia is having 25% off in her Etsy store as well from December 1st to the 20th. I know I'm sharing this a little bit late with you guys. I haven't been feeling very good and my voice is not doing what it's supposed to do, so I haven't been able to get these voiceovers done. I apologize for that. Hopefully, my voice will last through this voiceover and for the rest of them, but I hope to get 2 out every day until I kind of get myself caught up here a little bit. And so the sale's been going on for a few days already, so check out the link down below. Head on over to her Etsy store and grab yourself a whole bunch of these amazing Cutfiles. They really are so much fun to work with. And let's get into what I'm doing. So the prompt for day 1 in the Christmas side of things was trees. So we cut down our own Christmas tree this year. It's something we always did growing up. I always did growing up anyways, and was just a really fun family memory. And the last few years we've had a real tree, so we thought, why not go ahead and cut one down this year? So we kind of bundled ourselves up and got the baby ready and had the dog and my parents, and we got our permit to go into Kananaskis, which is just, 20 minutes from where we are, and cut down a tree. And of course, I had visions of it being this amazing family outing with lots of pictures and memories. And it was more like a Griswold family Christmas tree cutting down. So the first attempt didn't go well. But I thought that this truck with the tree on the back was obviously the perfect way to document it. So I went ahead and I cut that cut file out. And I cut it out at about 4x6. The album isn't actually quite 4x6. It's slightly smaller than that. It's almost like 3 3/4 by 5 3/4. You can see here, I just cut a 6x6 piece of paper down, and it's larger than the little insert that came in the album. I've been using those little inserts to kind of create my pages where I need to, and it gives me a thicker base for my pages and gives me the chance to kind of create little pockets and things like that when I want to, but it's not a true 4x6 album. So I cut everything out at 4x6, and in this case with the truck, it actually fits perfectly on there. And so I went ahead and cut it all out in white cardstock, and then I really carefully pulled all of those negative pieces off of my mat along with the outline, because what I wanted to do was paint those negative pieces and then pop them up with a little bit of foam. And I kind of showed a little bit of me doing that. I just used some watercolors to paint those panels, and then pop them up with some foam and kind of put it back together like a puzzle. And so I have this really kind of neat 3D truck that has a little bit of dimension to it. But I did use Dollar Tree foam, so it's not as thick as foam dots or anything like that. So it's really not going to cause too much of a problem as my album starts to get fuller and fuller. That is the thing that always gets me with December dailies, is my albums just get so full that I can't even close them. So I wanted to have that little tiny bit of a pop-up in all of those panels, but I didn't want it to become too thick. So that's what's on the first side. And so I'm going to go ahead and put a picture that we took of the tree that we cut down the first time we went out, and, you know, a little journaling about the gong show of that tree outing. And then on this side, the back of the page, I covered it with another piece of paper. Those both came from my sampler, my Scrapbook and Cards Today sampler. This was the Christmas pack or Christmas sampler from last year. So on the other side, I went ahead and covered that, and I'm going to put the actual tree that we ended up with and the much better experience that we had the second time we went out. Just my husband and I decided to go out and surprise the kids and get a nice tree. So kind of like the Griswold Christmas outing, and then the successful Christmas outing on the other side. So here I was trying to think if I wanted to pop the picture into the back instead of having the tree there, and then kind of make it look like the actual picture of the tree was the tree. So I started by taking the tree off the back. The way that Virginia has this cut file, it was really easy to just keep the truck empty if you wanted. So if you don't want to do a Christmas tree, you could replace it with another cut file or put some wood veneer in there, pumpkins or sunflowers or whatever you wanted. And so I didn't do the tree at first. And then I thought I do actually have a lot more to the story that I want to tell. So I decided to use this little glassine bag and kind of create a little pocket for myself. And then that way I can put the picture and the journaling all together in that little card that I put in there. So I just took some cardstock, cut it down to the right size, folded it in half, so I'll be able to get a picture on there and lots of journaling. But now to cover it up, I decided to go ahead and pull that tree back out again, and I'll just put that right on top. So I'm just going to give it a quick coat of paint, just kind of in that same red, but then also I'll paint the tree and the rope that's kind of going around it. And while I was doing this, I was trying to decide what might be the best way to give the tree a little bit of personality. I wanted to do something more than just backing it with paper, just to add some other textures to this little layout that I'm doing and kind of give that impression of it being a tree, which has lots of texture and branches and, you know, pine needles and stuff like that. So I decided to try something. I wasn't sure if it was going to work, but I pulled out my embroidery floss and I thought maybe I could find a way to kind of create the illusion of branches or like lines in the tree to give it that texture of a tree, but I didn't want it to have too much bulk. So you'll kind of see what I end up doing here, where I'm just sort of lying the embroidery floss along the tree. I'm not explaining it right, but you'll see. So I decided to back it with some white cardstock first, just so that it made it a little bit easier for me to use, and I wasn't trying to glue this right onto that glassine bag. So I glued down the truck part of this cut file so that I was kind of holding it stable. And then here you can see I'm just gathering up my embroidery floss in little strings of just 1 and 2, and I used some really long ones to kind of pull the whole length of the tree, and I'm just using my glue to kind of glue them in place so that they cover up that white background and kind of give the impression that this is a nice full tree. I also didn't want there to be too much bulk way up at that top tip, which would kind of make the tree look a little bit funny. So I'm filling in those little gaps there with these little pieces, and it just, I don't know, it just added a lot of fun texture. It isn't perfect. You can still see some of the white through the tree. But for my first time doing something like this, it was kind of fun. It was something a little bit different. And definitely if I wanted to do this again in the future, I've kind of figured out how I might be able to perfect this technique just by going one strand at a time. It takes a little bit of time, I think, but how cute would this be if you were doing like a teddy bear or the mane for a horse or something along those lines? I thought of a whole bunch of ways that it might be fun to kind of use this similar technique. So once all the string was down and I let it dry a little bit, then I just glued that outline down, made sure that it was stuck down really well. I actually stuck a heavy book on top of it so that everything adhered and the glue really soaked into the embroidery floss. And then I also used some twine, like a jute twine, to go ahead and be the ropes holding the tree down, and that is that side. Now here on this side, I didn't show you putting that piece of red cardstock there. I figured this is the important part with the cut file. But that's what I did for the other side. So when I have my pictures, I'll be able to just plop that picture in there, do a little bit of journaling. Same with the truck side. And that is actually day number 2 in my album, but day number 1 for the series. And doesn't that look great? I love how that turned out. And now day 2 is actually going to be my day 1 in my album. So day 2's prompt was stitching, and I decided I would do a fun little shaker pocket. I really liked this December and just kind of the detail, and it gives a lot of opportunity to back it. And so I thought that this would make a really fun kind of shaker pocket with some vellum in behind it, and it's just really pretty and dainty. Again, I also printed this out at 4x6, so it's actually been kind of squished and stretched. So this isn't how it actually looks if you go and check it out in the Etsy shop. It's a little bit taller and the letters aren't quite as kind of long and squished, but this is what works for my album, and that's the beauty of Cutfiles, is that you can make them work for whatever project you're using them for. So I'm going to go ahead, and I used a little bit of Wink of Stella. I don't know what possessed me to go and pull that out. I haven't used it in, probably definitely 2 years, maybe even longer. But I pulled it out because I have this red one that is supposed to be a little bit metallic. I don't really see the kind of metallic finish to it, but it's still a nice kind of Christmassy red, and it was a different kind of texture to the watercolors. So I thought I would go ahead and use that. And then now I'm using a Martha Stewart glue pen, which is something else I haven't used in probably 2 or 3 years at least. But I thought that this would be the best way. I don't have an embossing pen. I know that those exist. It's embossing ink inside kind of a pen form. I don't have one, so I thought that this would be an easy way for me to get embossing powder where I wanted it to go, because this is so thin and there's just such a fine little line there that I'm trying to emboss on. And I wanted to keep those snowflakes as white as possible. There's a little bit of gold in them and I'm okay with that, but I just kind of wanted to keep them white instead of gold, so I figured this would work really well. The one thing I will say about using this particular glue pen is you really want to make sure you don't get any areas with thick glue, because the heat embossing gun doesn't really like that. It doesn't let the powder kind of finish really nicely. Oh, isn't that the best part when you see the gold turn all metallic and pretty? I love that part. But It really was super, super simple just to trace the lines and make sure everything was covered with glue. I kind of went letter by letter by putting the embossing powder on. And then if I missed spots, I could go back and dab at it and kind of fill it in. It's definitely not perfect, but I think it turned out really pretty. I did go back once I did the gold. I actually went back over the white and reapplied more glue and embossing powder and kind of heated them up again just to make the white kind of pop a little bit more. You can see where there's some gold that got spilled over, but for the most part they're white and I think they look really pretty. So once that was all done, I went ahead and glued that down to this vellum paper that I had. It's got gold writing on it and it's just a whole bunch of things. It's actually, it looks like it's maybe an insert from an encyclopedia or a dictionary, something like that. So it doesn't really have words that are specific to Christmas or anything like that. I just thought it was a really kind of pretty piece of vellum and the gold looked really nice. The piece that I had wasn't wide enough to quite fit the whole word, so you can see those two little red tabs that I have sticking out. I actually created a little tab and kind of popped it in where I folded the paper over or folded the vellum over and just created a little spot where I could go ahead and punch the holes to put this into the album. So that's what that little bit of red paper is, just using some cardstock. And then I hand stitched all the way around it, leaving just that little spot at the top where I could fill it up with sequins. And this is just a mix of different sequins that I have in my little Christmas stash. I've got red and gold and green and silver and just I think there's even white ones in there and maybe some kind of mint ones and light blue ones. I just filled it up with a whole bunch of them, as you can see here. I also did back the bow, the candy cane, and the little holly. I thought that it would just help them stand out a little bit more. So they're just backed with some red cardstock and a little bit of green cardstock for the holly leaves. And then here on the back, this is where I'm going to put the picture for day one. So I just wanted to create sort of a mat, I guess you could say, using a bunch of different scraps that I had available. And this is where I'm going to put a picture of our elves. And I'm going to put the little title that says "We're back," because of course they are back usually on day one. And so, yeah, I don't have the picture printed out, obviously, but I know that I can get a picture that's going to fit this little kind of matting. And when I'm going through and putting my pictures in, if I feel like I want to add a few extra embellishments and stuff like that, I definitely will. These are very much just base pages. But you will see that at the end of December, so stay tuned. And then here you can see at the front, I did put 2021 since it's the opening of my album. And that is it for day 2. So here are some close-ups of all the different things that I did. I just love how that truck turned out. It looks so cool in real life. Thank you so much for watching. I really appreciate it. Please go and show some love to everybody else who's playing along for the next 20 days. There is so much amazing stuff going on. And go and check out Virginia's Etsy shop. You don't want to miss out on that 25% off. There are some amazing cut files. I know I keep saying amazing, but it's true. And until tomorrow, happy scrapping. Bye.